दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्री गुरु शंकर, परिज्ञानाश्रम शंकर सद्गुरु केशव वामन कृष्ण पांडुरंग आनंद परिज्ञान गुरु सद्योजात शंकर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शंकर परिज्ञानाश्रम शंकर सद्गुरु केशव वामन कृष्ण पांडुरंग आनंद परिज्ञान गुरु सद्योजात शंकर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Ravin ma'am, can you please?
Yeah. So good morning, good evening to all the viewers who have joined us today on this occasion of meeting with a very famous couple from our Chitrapur Saraswats from right now working in US doing their research. So before the Mr. Nagarkatti, Prakash Nagarkatti and Mrs. Mitzi Nagarkatti are introduced, let me just give a quick update in terms of what KSA has been doing. KSA is an institution which is more than 111 years old and has been very actively involved over these years in charitable, social and cultural activities, basically promoting and supporting the interest of Chitrapur Saraswats. It started 111 years ago when the Chitrapur Saraswats were migrating from our either South Canada or North Canada, where we were originally kind of located, when they were migrating to Mumbai, as it is called now. So that's the time when it was felt by Rao Bahadur Talmaki to set up something in terms of creating an organization. The kind of initially started as a club, then became, as I said, it's now called the association, registered under the Bombay Public Trust Act of Mumbai. And it's been doing a great work. In fact, all of us who are associated with KSA, we feel really honored to represent this unique and great institution, which has done extremely good work. I mean, if I were to talk about what work has been done by the association, I'll take about another 1 hour. So rather than wasting too much of time, I just wanted to come to the main point. We felt about 2.5 years ago, I think it was in June or July 2018, we felt that we should be, or 2019, sorry, we felt that we should start a series of mulakat or interviews with our distinguished members of our community who have done exceedingly well in the areas of business, in the areas of academics, in the areas of research, like we will be talking today, or in the areas of even sports or even cultural kind of a front. And basically, the whole idea was to bring forth to the attention of our members the great work done by these people. Also, as a kind of these interviews can then become the kind of guidance to some of our youngsters who would like to pursue their either business interest or other personal interest or academic interest or whatever professional interest they may have. So that's the idea. And this is the first time we are getting the cross-border, kind of a famous Amchi team of husband and wife, Dr. Prakash Nagarkatti and Dr. Mitzi Nagarkatti. And we feel very honored, Dr. Mom and sorry, this is very common to call as Mom and Pachi. So it's very unique distinction to invite people like you, both of you, who have done great work in the medical research. I don't want to get into the details. I'm basically a trained accountant, so it's too much of a Greek and Latin for me. So I don't want to get into the details. That will be done by somebody else. But really welcome you. We feel greatly honored that you decided to accept this invitation. And I hand over to Rajiv Ma to take this forward. Thank you, Rajima.
Thanks a lot, Praveen Ma'am. Friends, I'll take a few minutes to share what we do at KSA CSN. CSN stands for Chitrapur Saraswat Network. And we are very fortunate that this initiative has been blessed by Param Puja Swamiji. And that's the reason we have made so much progress. We also owe a lot the CSN movement. All our activities have progressed because of the constant guidance and active participation of our president, Praveen Kadle Ma'am, who spoke just now, Kishore Masurkar Ma'am, who is our vice president, and Jairam Kambutkund Ma'am, who is our chairman. We owe a lot to them. I'm also very thankful to all my colleagues on the committee and also to many volunteers who are part of the task force. All of them spend a humongous lot of time on all our activities. Now to come to what we do or what we want to do, we want to create an environment where all of us, all Bhanaps, strive for growth and excellence in whatever we are doing, in all our activities. We want to create an environment where all Amchis or most Amchis over a period of time opt to venture into entrepreneurship. We want to create an environment where all of us learn to overcome our reticence, which is, as you all know, a Bhanap trait, and we learn to talk about our work and our achievements. We want to create an environment where all of us support each other, whether it is for jobs or for business, when all else is equal. Meaning, if the quality, capability, delivery, cost, all these things are equal, we will give our business to a fellow Bhanap and we will help a fellow Bhanap get a job. And how do we do this? How do we achieve all these objectives? Well, we first started, like Praveen Ma'am said, with the mulakats. And today's is now the 6th mulakat. The mulakats are held with high achievers of our community. And the purpose is to learn from their life stories and to be inspired by what they have done so that each one of us strives to do better in our day-to-day lives, in whatever we are doing. All our mulakats are available on our website. Next, we have created a database on our website, which is www.canarasaraswat.com/CSN. This is a database for all Amchi entrepreneurs and businesses. It already has around 170 businesses listed on it. And I request all Amchi businessmen and all Amchi entrepreneurs, Bhanap entrepreneurs, to register their businesses on this database. Next, we are going to create yellow pages, which was a wonderful suggestion given by our Vice President Kishore Masukar Ma'am. These yellow pages will list all the businesses which are on the database, and we will be sharing these yellow pages through WhatsApp groups, AMCHI WhatsApp groups, AMCHI Telegram groups, AMCHI FB pages, so that all these businesses get a lot of publicity. And then we will be encouraging all Bhanaps to refer to these yellow pages or to the database on the website whenever they want a product or a service, and try to give the business to an AMCHI service provider or a product provider. Other than that, we have created groups in Telegram and WhatsApp where entrepreneurs and professionals can interact with each other, with other fellow Bhanaps in real-time basis. We have an entrepreneur group on Telegram. We have WhatsApp groups for CAs and a separate one for women entrepreneurs. And we intend creating focused WhatsApp groups for other professionals like doctors, architects, as we move along. We also hold regular interaction sessions on Zoom for all entrepreneurs. In this, all attendees get a chance to talk about the work, their businesses, what they offer, what they do, and they get a chance to listen to the other attendees and find out what they are doing. We hope that these interactions will help them mutually grow their businesses, giving business to each other. Later, when the fear of COVID recedes a bit, we will also have physical meetings. Other than this, we have been regularly holding and will continue to hold in future knowledge sharing sessions. In this, we invite Bhanaps with domain expertise to share the knowledge in the areas of their expertise. All these workshops and also all the mulaqats are recorded, and the links are made available on our website. Other than this, we have also formed panels of experts who will offer advice and guidance and do some hand-holding for entrepreneurs who are in need of help on a pro bono basis. This, friends, is in brief what we are doing at CSN, and of course we intend adding more activities to it as we move along. I request you all to keep visiting our website to get updates, and you may also contact us through the email ID given on the website. I repeat our website address. It is www.canarasaraswat.com/CSN. I now request Arun Heble Ma'am, who is the president of Chitrapur Heritage Foundation, to enlighten us on the activities of Chitrapur Heritage Foundation. Arun Ma'am, can you please take over?
Hi, thank you, Rajiv Ma'am. Great work you guys are doing. Wish you were there 50 years ago when I was looking for a job. You know? So, great, thank you. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Shri Bhavani Shankaray Namaha. Om Shri Matre Namaha. Jai Shankar. First, my Sashtang Namas pranams to Param Pujya Sadhyo Jata Shankarashram Swamiji to seek his blessings. Good morning to listeners in the USA. Good evening to those in India, and good afternoon to our friends in the UK. Hopefully they have joined us. On behalf of Chitrapur Heritage Foundation USA, called CHF, I extend a warm welcome to you all to this first joint initiative of KSA Chitrapur Saraswat Network and CHF. CHF, a not-for-profit organization, was founded on June 15th in 2005 to engage the laity in the USA with Sri Chitrapur Mutt or Mathadipati Pujya Sadyojat Shankarashram Swamiji, his initiatives, spiritual, religious, and social causes. In short, Swamiji's vision is our mission. Religious causes are, we collect Vantiga. That's our priority and passionate task. We recently started helping people to perform sevas at the mutt on their behalf by donating through CHF. We actively supported and participated in NRI Shibirs in Shirali and Karla. Educational causes that we support are, we support Shivalis High School in Shirali, Parijnana Vidyalaya in Karla, a vocational school for handicapped children in Virar, Kotekar High School near Mangalore. Women empowerment, we help with the sale of Samir Sudha products in the US. We have a very vibrant team that have started doing this very actively, and we have great success. Social causes are, we help communities around the mutts to uplift the underprivileged through financial aid. Recently, we have started Chitrapur Seva Day to help communities in the US by getting Saraswat's families and children involved with local charitable causes. We want the children to learn importance of giving. Last year, as you know, 2020 was tough because of the COVID-19 situation. But Swamiji's blessings and his virtual visit to our homes brought our community together by revisiting our values. We were able to raise over $500,000, of which $200,000 was from Vantiga. Thank you, US donors, for their generosity. Besides these annual projects, we have been able to support some special projects, raise funds for the third centenary celebration in 2008, raise funds for acquire land in Tiruvannamalai for a meditation center, raise funds for food baskets for villages around Shirali, Karla, Bhatkar, and Mangalore. We did that last year because of the COVID-19 situation. Recently, we had 150 members of our community participate in Brahma Kalasha Seva celebrations. All these projects are possible because of you, the donors in the USA, your generosity, and the dedicated, passionate, hardworking, and loving volunteers, including our 11 board members who are in different parts of the USA. For further details and most current information about our activities, please visit our website www.chfusa.org. Moving forward, I would like to our community to encourage the younger generation and their kids to get involved. We seek the support of every Amchi family in the US. Lastly, I thank Praveen Mom, Dilip Mavinkurve Mom, Keshav Mom for giving us timely information from India. It's very valuable. Thank you again, and may God's and Pujya Swamiji's blessings always be with you. Now I request my friend and fellow founder and board member of CHF, Kiran Munkur, to take it over from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun Ma'am. And hello everyone. I'm Kiran Munkur from the Chitrapur Heritage Foundation, which is in USA. And this is our first mulakat. So mulakat over the oceans that after receiving approval from Praveen Ma'am and Arun Ma'am from both our parties in India and leaders and USA, Rajiv, Ma'am and myself, we got moving on this. And we are here today to bring you an across the ocean a very interesting event, and which will be beginning right after my talk here. So our joint objective out of this between KSA CSN, Chitrapur Saraswat Network, and the US Chitrapur Heritage Foundation is to continue bringing these events across the oceans that are of common interest in India and the US. The success that you had in India is being expanded, and so we will be providing you many more opportunities to witness individuals that have come here as immigrants, started from scratch, risen to the highest levels in the United States, and understand their passion, their drive, and their motivation that has led to success as a minority. And the key area of focus for us, in addition to having such good discussions, is also to engage and encourage our youth so that they can learn from these opportunities and hopefully emulate and even carry it beyond, carry our community beyond in global success. So with that, our areas that we'll be focusing on are very broad. So we will be focusing on fundamental areas such as research, health, financial investments, entrepreneurship, key technologies, and a lot more different areas where Konkani's tiny minority that we are, the Chitrapur Saraswats, here also in the US, have done very well. So we'll do our best to share the best practices so that our youth can benefit and everyone else can enjoy listening to them. So with that, I will now introduce our key our compere, and then we'll get on with the show. And so I take great pleasure in introducing Dr. Nivedita Bizur from Simpsonville, South Carolina. She's the founder and CEO of Oakview Medical Associates of Simpsonville, and providing practice, private practice, which is specialized in internal medicine, pediatrics, gynecology, geriatrics, diagnostics, X-ray and ultrasound imaging, lifestyle medicine, weight loss. And this facility also has an urgent care center. All of this created by this one lady. She also has children that she fondly takes care of, and a wonderful and supporting husband. She's fondly known as Nivi. She received her bachelor's degree in science from the Jai Hind College in Mumbai, and in science. And she got the first rank in physics in a very competitive environment. Then she achieved her MD from the KJ Somaiya Medical College, Somaiya Medical College, and a research center in Mumbai. And then she went on to the United States, where she completed her residency in family medicine at the Spartanburg Regional Medical Center of the Medical University of South Carolina. And this is a famous university in the United States. And Nivi has a lot more accomplishments in her professional career. As an immigrant, Nivi has won awards such as the Best Physician Award, America's Top Physician Award, Patient Choice Award, Most Compassionate Physician Award, and you will see her compassion through this discussion. And there are several other awards she has won. And in the interest of time, I will now hand it to Dr. Nivedita Bijur to introduce the topic to our of our guest speakers, and also then get on with the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiran Ma'am. My name is Dr. Nivedita Bijur. As Kiran Ma'am mentioned, I'm a physician in South Carolina. I've been in practice here for about 23 years. And today it gives me great pleasure to present our first Mulaqat, which is a joint venture, so to speak, between Canva Saraswat Association, the Chitrapur Saraswat Network, and our Chitrapur Heritage Foundation here in the US. Before I begin today's presentation, I would like to offer my Shashtang Pranams to our Param Pujya Shankarashram Swamiji, Sadhyoja Shankarashram Swamiji, our Guru Parampara, Lord Bhavani Shankar, and Goddess Bhuvaneshwari. Today, my guests are so accomplished, and over the last several weeks, I've gotten to know them. I feel like I know them personally. I've been sitting in the same living room with them, and I'm very honored to present their whole life story and what has brought them, their legacy, what has brought them to great heights in their careers. Dr. Prakash Nagarkati is the VP of Research at the University of South Carolina and the director of the NIH Center of Research Excellence in Inflammation. Dr. Mitzi Nagarkati is the chairperson of Pathology, Immunology, and Microbiology, and the Smart State Endowment Chair at the Center of Cancer Discovery at the University of South Carolina. Dr. Prakash Nagarkati manages about $300 million in research here and recently acquired $3.8 billion contract from the Department of Energy. I would really like us to get to know this power couple and the influence and the amount of impact they have made in their own individual careers and how they have served the economy, the health, the impact that they've had in our whole generation. And I'm just overwhelmed and blown away by the amount of content that I have learned from them and how they have come from such humble beginnings. And they are today so humble. I really enjoyed getting to know them. So without much further ado, I'd like to bring up Dr. Prakash Nagarkati, who has really prepared a wonderful set of photographs illustrating their whole life and their careers. Dr. Prakash Nagarkati, I'd love to begin with you and ask you a little bit about your birthplace, your growing up, your childhood years, and what really impacted you in your early education years.
Right. So let me begin by thanking all the organizers, as well as thank you, Nivedita, for hosting us. And I think it's such an honor and such a privilege to be invited for this function. So I grew up in a place called Dharwad, and a place called Saraswatpur. We used to call it Gudda, means like a hill. So we were, there were maybe about 50 or so Saraswat families, because of which it was called Saraswatpur. And so I grew up, playing with all the, the kids were all Saraswats and all that. And so I really had a wonderful environment to grow, as well as, there were some role models for us at that time, like people like Girish Karnad, who was a Rhodes Scholar, and he was a close friend of my eldest brother, Arun Nagarkati, now who lives in England. So, so basically the reason why or how I got interested in research was I was doing my bachelor's degree in botany at Karnataka College. I got to come across, I came across a professor by name Dr. Patil. And while all the other professors were just professors, he was called doctor. And I was thinking like, he doesn't look like the sort of person who treats patients, but, why is he called a doctor? And then it turned out that, he's a PhD doctor. And so I really got to know him very well. And I was curious to see, like, how did he get his PhD? And, he got his PhD because he was a taxonomist. He used to identify, various plants that are located in the state of Karnataka. And he used to take us on botanical tours to Castle Rock and Kodaikanal and Ooty and all that. And so once when he had taken us, he was asking us to go and pick up all these leaves and identify the plants. So I happened to pick up a plant, which I felt it was kind of rare. And I showed it to him. I said, I can't identify what this is. And he was very excited. And he went through his entire taxonomy book and he identified that as, I still remember that, it was belonging to the family called Urticaceae. And he said, this is very rare in, Karnataka. And he was so excited. He called the class and said, and I felt at that time, I was so excited. I felt as though I was going to win a Nobel Prize for that discovery. So that kind of tweaked my interest in, trying to do research, because I felt like, it's such an exciting experience to discover in Institute of Medical Sciences. He was working on a protein calorie malnutrition called as kwashiorkor, and we started looking at the immune response in these children. And so that's how we got, interested in immunology. And, then we went on to do our PhD at Defense Research and Development Establishment in Gwalior. So Mitzi went there first. I was in Bombay for a little while. I also worked with a famous Amchi. Her name was Shanta Rao, and she was the director of the Institute for Research in Reproduction. So I joined her lab to do PhD, but then I got a better job at Defense Research and Development Establishment, where Mitzi was already working. So naturally, I said, that was a better opportunity, not only to continue to work with her, but also, be able to do PhD. So that's how, we both got our PhD degrees from Defense Research and Development Establishment. And after we finished our PhD, we realized that, to do cutting edge research, we are talking about 1970s. In fact, I was just telling Mitzi that we met each other in 1971, which is almost like 50 years ago.
You're really old.
Yeah. So those are 1970s where, if you wanted to really do cutting edge research, you could not do that. You couldn't do that without, reagents, chemicals, equipment. And, being in India, those days you could not get those, because if you order a foreign chemical, it will come after like a year or 2 years when the work gets outdated. So we decided that, maybe that we should go to US or Canada to do our postdoctoral research. That's how we finally ended up in Canada for a little while and then moved to United States.
That's wonderful. And Dr. Mitzi, can you share a little bit about your childhood? We have a wonderful slide prepared which shows your sets of parents, and we'd just like to learn a little more about your background.
Yeah, so I was born in Mangalore and I did my schooling in Mangalore. My father worked in Kuwait, and so I lived with my grandmother. And of course, they visit every year, or we used to visit our parents every other year. So after finishing my schooling, my dad was on the point of retirement. So we decided to move to Bangalore. And so I did my bachelor's degree in Bangalore. And then I decided to join a medical school. So I joined there, but I hated to do dissections of cadavers. So I came back home, and then I decided I'll join microbiology for master's. And so I joined microbiology at the Karnataka Medical College, and that's the place where I met Prakash. So as fate would have it, actually, in the first year of my master's, we had to do human anatomy and physiology. So once again, I had to do the dissection. But I continued, persevered, and managed to get it behind me. So that's how I met Prakash, and we both started doing our research. As Prakash mentioned, we started doing our research together. And then, of course, we started working as well at the Defense R&D establishment. And so we have been doing research almost together for the past so many years.
Yeah, it's almost 50 years.
That's wonderful. Starting out, did you all ever think, okay, we want to live in the United States, or that's where we want to be? Or is it just something that happened while you connected the dots and moved on along your journey?
Right. So actually, when we went to Canada, we were in Hamilton, first time visiting, Canada, and Hamilton gets tons and tons of snow. So, it was so cold, and, we were just, we didn't have money to buy the car or anything like that. So the life was really difficult at that time. And also our only child, Nisha, our daughter, she was born there at that time. So that, and then combined with the fact that my mentor, within a year, he kind of lost his grant and said, Prakash, I know that you all both work really hard, and, you've been doing extremely well, but unfortunately, I don't have money to support you. So immediately within a year, we had to start looking for another position. And so then we said, and he himself said, that the funding situation is so much better in the United States. And so then maybe you should look for a job there. So that's how we moved immediately, almost within 1.5 years or so, with a small child, again, looking for another position, and moved to US. But actually that taught us a lesson in that, we said, okay, if we're going to be researchers, we're going to really work hard to make sure that we're going to generate enough research dollars that would help us support our students and our postdocs, and making sure that they're going to be very successful in their careers. Because we don't want to be in a situation where we recruit some students and or postdocs and not being able to support them, and having to ask them to leave in the middle of their career, middle of their PhD or so. So every time we go to some place, it was some unique experience that made us, in fact, better people that we are right now. So
yeah, that's so true, that I think every experience you have kind of helps mold the next phase of your career, and then brings you to greater heights. That's wonderful. Tell us a little more about your current roles and responsibilities, Dr. Mitzi.
Yeah, so I'm the chair of the Department of Pathology, Microbiology, and Immunology at the School of Medicine. So our primary focus is not only on teaching the medical students, but also the doctoral students. So we provide training also in research. So we have a very large lab, which is very well funded. And so we have a number of doctoral students. We have postdoctoral fellows, and we also have junior faculty working in our labs. So we train them in a variety of areas, ranging from inflammation is one of the major overall umbrella under which we work. So as you know, that inflammation is an important aspect of human life, because in order to get rid of any infection, one has to have inflammatory cells. But as soon as the infection is cleared, the inflammation has to also clear. But invariably, in some individuals, it persists and turns out to be chronic inflammation. And in this case, it turns out to be not detrimental to the host. For example, those patients who are suffering from cardiovascular diseases or from neurodegenerative diseases, as well as autoimmune diseases such as lupus, etc., obesity, aging, and even certain types of cancers, the underlying cause of this is inflammation. So we are mainly focused on looking at all these various diseases, and looking at how the inflammatory cells are induced, and also how we can prevent or treat them. So we have a lot of research which is going on use of plant products. So we are funded by the National Institutes of Health, and we have two main center grants. One of them is to look at the effect of a number of compounds such as resveratrol, which is an ingredient found in red grape skins and seeds and other compounds such as indoles, which are found in cruciferous vegetables such as cabbage, cauliflower, etc., which are known to be beneficial. And we got interested in this plant, looking at plant products because first and foremost, we are from India, and you know that a large number of spices and plant products are being consumed. And it has been shown actually anecdotally that they are beneficial to treat certain diseases. For example, ginger, for example, you know, whenever you have nausea, my grandmother used to give me ginger, but there have not been really scientific studies done in order to determine what is the actual mechanism or what precisely happens following consumption of these plant products. So we got interested in looking at the effect of plant products in inflammatory and autoimmune diseases. So that's how our main research has gone in that direction in our department. So we have a number of faculty working on a variety of diseases that I just mentioned, and we are mainly focused on looking at the effect of various plant products and seeing how they can be used to prevent and treat various diseases.
What I can clearly see here is the passion that both of you bring to whatever y'all are doing. And today's talk is going to be so interesting because it's not just about your careers and your profession, but it's also going to give everyone, all the viewers, a wealth of knowledge regarding a lot of disease states. And now, as we know, with the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of us globally have come to understand the impacts of inflammation and keeping ourselves healthy with a healthy diet. And that's all right up my alley with lifestyle medicine. So I personally have had a wonderful journey getting to know you. And I want that to really the viewers to get that as well. Dr. Prakash, please tell us about your current roles and responsibilities. I know you manage a lot and you both do it wonderfully. So please share with us what an average day is like for you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that question. So about 15 actually doing research to trying to go into more administration, because I felt like that it's not just enough for us to continue to do research, but also try to help junior faculty as well as other faculty members to enhance their research productivity and trying to give them better opportunities as well. So when I started looking for administrative or leadership roles, and I had an opportunity to become vice president for research at University of South Carolina. And my role there is pretty much overseeing the research for the entire university system. So we have 7 campuses, and the main campus located at Columbia. And we are ranked by the Carnegie Foundation as a tier 1 research university, which is there are about 50 or so of these Carnegie universities. And our faculty generate about $300 million worth of research. And my goal is to not just look at my own research, but also research in environmental sciences, advanced materials, and health sciences, so many different areas, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity. So basically creating an infrastructure in a way that would, promote research excellence throughout the university. So that's kind of my role right now. But, later on, I also can discuss about, trying to work with, congressmen, senators, governors, and all that, and trying to see how we can secure more research funding, not only to our university, but also to the state of South Carolina. Yeah. So overall, that's my role as a VPR, just to keep promoting research across the university as well as the state of South Carolina.
That's
And
wonderful.
not only the university is ranked, but also the medical school is ranked, as well as the departments are ranked. So for example, our department, after we joined, we increased the funding to about 13 million per year, which made us, this ranking changes year by year based on the dollars that we bring in. So it was ranked in the top 15 in the nation as far as the pathology departments are concerned. So rankings are there for towards research as well as towards the training of the medical students or the graduate students. And so we have to ensure that our ranking increases and we become successful.
That is so important for us to be mindful of the impact we will have on the future generations. And that's why we, really were very honored that you all agreed to do this interview, because I think it really raises the bar for people, the younger generation listening in today from all parts of the world, to understand and gain insight into what exactly it takes, it takes passion, it takes a lot of course, your intelligence and almost like having a path, in which you are going to proceed. So for our youth today listening in, just most of us think of research as a very stereotype, sitting behind the microscope and not a very glamorous job. But what I've learned from you, and we have illustrated this beautifully, if we can put up the first slide and then we'll move on to the second slide. But in the first slide we have today, Kiran Ma'am is just going to display that for us in a little bit. That, really shows your wonderful early years, a photo of your marriage, I'm sure that is, right, or engagement, and your parents.
Yes, that's our wedding picture. On either side of that picture are like our parents.
Yes.
Both my parents as well as Mitzi's parents. We owe it to them. Whatever we are today, it's all because of their hard work, their dedication, their love, and family support. And then below we have pictures of our only child, Nisha Nagarkari, and her husband David, and we have two little grandkids, Deccan and Leiden. So we are truly blessed. So
that's wonderful. They all have your infectious smile, Mitzi. That's very nice. So moving on to the next slide, actually, we could nicely display that. Tell us about how you got interested. The next slide really shows a lot of work that you have done, Dr. Prakash Nagarkati, in the field of cannabinoids, which a lot of us now, globally understanding the impact of plant-based medicine. Certainly, there are so many things available out there, and just, not knowing, for the average person, not knowing is this good for me to take? Where is the value? There's so much information on the web right now. How can somebody, gain understanding of what cannabinoids do and how they can impact our health?
Right. No, that's a great question. So we're interested in trying to see, okay, these cannabinoids can, especially a compound called THC, can make you high. That is because it binds to what I call as CB1 receptors in the brain. But we were able to discover that in addition to that, the immune cells that fight off infection and cancer, they also express another type of receptor called CB2. And when you activate the CB2, it does not make you high. So then we got interested in looking at, okay, what are these cannabinoids doing then on the immune cells? So then we found out that not only the plants have these cannabinoids, but we produce our own cannabinoids called endocannabinoids. Then I'm sure you're going to ask me, if we produce our own cannabinoids that are called endocannabinoids, which are similar to marijuana, then why are we not high all the time? And that is because we produce in small quantities. And also when it's produced, it's broken down by certain enzymes. But these endocannabinoids that we produce are absolutely critical for us to make sure that we sleep well, we eat well, to maintain our body temperature, and to fight off infections, to suppress inflammation. So there are so many functions that these endocannabinoids carry out. So then the question was, okay, is it possible that sometimes we don't produce enough endocannabinoids, or our receptors are not working well, because of which then we might get autoimmune diseases, inflammation, and all the other types of diseases? And is it because of that when you take marijuana cannabinoids, you feel good about it? So that's what our research led basically to show, that the cannabinoids that are found in the marijuana or cannabis plant, as well as the cannabinoids that we produce on our own, have tremendous impact on regulating the entire health of a particular individual. And then we got excited about, okay, immune cells express these receptors. What about cancer cells? Do the cancer cells express cannabinoid receptors? And we are able to show that yes, they do express. And then when you add the cannabinoids to the cancer cells, they commit suicide through a process called apoptosis. So then we checked whether cannabinoids can actually cure animals which have been having tumor growth. And we were excited to find that yes, the cannabinoids can cure almost 30 to 40% of the mice that were developing tumors. So that became really a sensational story because of course, marijuana is considered to be like something really bad, but we are showing for the first time beneficial effects on treating autoimmunity and cancer. So we started getting calls from all over the world, from BBC News to PBS wanted to do a documentary, and so it became really a sensational story. But the nice part about it was that just being able to show that that we produce our own cannabinoids, and also marijuana is nothing unique in that it produces the same cannabinoids that we always produce. So that was a groundbreaking observation that was later on used by other people to develop further studies as well.
And I would like to
yes.
Yeah.
I would like to add that Prakash just mentioned about these CB1 receptors found on the neurons, which are the brain cells, which THC binds, and it's almost like a lock and key mechanism, where this key enters this keyhole and it unlocks and makes you feel high and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I know that you are interested in obesity, and we have done some studies because THC makes you improve appetite. It enhances, prevents nausea. It also is an analgesic painkiller. So they have used THC to treat cancer patients as well as to treat AIDS patients because they have lack of appetite. But on the other hand, what we did was these cannabinoid receptors, there are what are known as antagonists. So they bind to the receptors, but they cannot unlock the lock. So what happens is they occupy that receptor so that the endogenous cannabinoids that Prakash spoke about cannot bind. And thus you lose appetite. So that's the way in which obesity can be treated, by using these antagonists that go and bind to these cannabinoid receptors and prevent the appetite of the person who's being treated with this.
That's amazing how, if you look at everything that we use in our daily life, whether it's a light bulb or a gadget or something, the lights on the road, on the highways, pharmaceutical patents are obtained. And so for our viewers to understand that you are really integral to the whole process of product development and, economy, I would say, to a flourishing economy. That's really important. And you were, spoke about that with us a little bit before. Tell us about, certain disease states. You mentioned the cancers, the multiple sclerosis with the neurons, and also in autoimmune hepatitis. Knowing that people look at cannabinoids as, what's the abuse potential? Where is the place for this? I mean, is it to be considered right in the beginning when someone is diagnosed, or is it an adjuvant therapy that would be added? How do we approach that in science?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. So when we were studying immunology, like dating back to like 30, 40 years ago and all that, we were studying in the role of immune system is basically to fight off infections and cancer. And it still does that, right? Without immune system, you become susceptible to infections, like especially COVID-19, and people will die. But the research that was done in the last maybe 5 or 10, 10 to 15 years maybe, is that um, scientists are beginning to realize that pretty much all the clinical disorders, as Mitzi mentioned, whether it's cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's to whatever, has an inflammatory component. In other words, inflammation, chronic inflammation, is the underlying cause of all these diseases. So therefore, if you can develop a product or a compound which can prevent the chronic inflammation, then that can take us to healthy aging. So we can age without having to worry about developing cancer, cardiovascular disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, osteoarthritis, autoimmune diseases, and all that. So our goal has been to try to do that. But we need to be careful in that we cannot use a very strong immunosuppressant like corticosteroids, for example, because it's clearly shown that if you suppress the immune response to an extent that will make you susceptible to infections or to develop cancers. So therefore, you need to have compounds that can suppress chronic inflammation without affecting your ability to fight off infections or cancer. So that's the biggest challenge. So what our research has shown is that on one hand, cannabinoids, we can manipulate the cannabinoids, even the endogenous cannabinoids that we produce, using certain types of drugs. So that's one way. And the second thing, as Mitzi mentioned, is that there are a lot of botanicals, from curcumin that we use in curries to indoles and resveratrol and all that. There are so many of these phytochemicals, and we have been able to identify that these phytochemicals bind to another receptor called as aryl hydrocarbon receptor, and that can prevent chronic inflammation as well. So that's why we are trying to focus on targeting these cannabinoid receptors and the aryl hydrocarbon receptors to see whether we can develop synthetic compounds that can prevent this low-grade chronic inflammation. And if we can, and if we are successful in doing that, that's going to transform the lives of everybody. Basically, you can then age without having to worry about all these other clinical disorders that you develop.
That's fascinating. And Dr. Mitzi works a lot on the epigenetic side, the epigenome, and understanding the effect of, explain to us how the environment affects our health and future generations as well.
Sure. So far it was believed that the genes are the ones which can determine whether the person is susceptible to infections or how the person would respond to certain medicines and so on and so forth. But nowadays it's becoming increasingly clear that outside of the genes, there are elements in the DNA which can also affect how the gene is expressed. In other words, there are these what are known as microRNAs and so on and so forth, which can influence the gene expression. And this, we have been studying a lot of work we have been doing on this aspect, so much so we can use these to, what is known as personalized medicine, where you can tailor medicine to each individual so that no two people are identical or would react to the same medication, but we can manipulate each person's genes and so provide, it's called precision medicine or personalized medicine. So that's one of the things that we are working on. Yet another aspect that we are working on is the microbiome. You know that the gastrointestinal tract has a large number of bacteria, which is referred to as the microbiome. So the microbiome is the one that determines how the person is susceptible to infection or how they would respond to medications. So it has been shown that if you were to transfer this microbiome from a lean animal to an obese animal, you can transfer the leanness to that obese individual. So now we have been able to show such experiments in our murine models, experimental models, but some of the clinicians are trying to do it, to do this in the patients as well.
That's fascinating. We have, a slide that I want to bring up is the next slide on the testimony at the State Assembly, how your research, how you lobby and try to get our community, the politicians and the people in charge of making decisions. How do you all actually, I watched one of your videos, Dr. Prakash. I mean, that was absolutely fascinating to me. The next one, the next slide down, that shows you speaking at the South Carolina State Assembly. The one, I think it's just before this one. Educating the public, yes. And tell us about that experience, you being grilled and presenting in front of all of these people. You handled that beautifully and really explained in very nice terms to people to understand the benefits.
No, thank you so much for that. So what happened was South Carolina, so many other states, I think right now there are about over 33 states in the US which have legalized cannabis for patients, not for, we're not talking about recreational use, but some states have done that. But in state of South Carolina, they wanted to legalize cannabis for patients who need that, because we and other people have shown that it helps in autoimmune diseases. It prevents in children who go through hundreds of seizures a day, a difficult condition, what is called as epilepsy. And they find that the cannabinoids can completely prevent these seizures. So, Senator Tom Davis from South Carolina, he contacted me because he had heard that we are working on cannabinoids. And he said, I need your help in terms of, trying to provide a testimony based on your research on how useful these cannabinoids are. But at the same time, there was huge opposition from law enforcement people. They felt like, if you legalize, even for medicinal purposes, normal people might start abusing that. And because of which, it's going to have a huge impact. And our argument was that, but why do you then allow alcohol, for example? Alcohol is fine. Like, you drink glass of wine and party, whatever, that's perfectly fine. But why can't we have legal access to cannabis for patients who need it? Like if a child is going through, and in fact, at the time when I was trying to provide the testimony, there were parents with children with epilepsy. And I saw that one of the child started developing seizures. And when I saw that, I was really moved by that. And I said, no, I'm just going to keep fighting for this, because I told the law enforcement people that it's just not fair for normal people to say that, oh, you are patients, you're born with some defects, but we're not going to allow you to have a product that is given to you by Mother Nature. Because if we make that accessible to you, we who are normal people will start abusing it. And I said, what kind of argument is that? It doesn't make sense, right? So, there was a lot of grilling, as you said, but I basically told them, the same thing, that, we have to go wherever the research takes us. Yes. And we have had this problem even with the National Institute of Health, because when we started this work, we were showing that we got the grant because, they were interested in showing that marijuana is bad for you. But when our research showed that it is beneficial, they didn't want to fund us. They said, no, we don't fund beneficial effects of, cannabis or whatever. And we said, but we have to go wherever our data takes us to. We can't be lying as scientists, just to get research dollars or whatever. That's not the way science works. So we continue to secure funding from other sources, but we'll continue to explore and unravel the truth. And, so just going back to the testimony that we provided, Slowly, it's getting traction right now. And I think this year, I think we'll come to know about it in the next couple of few weeks, that they're going to vote on the Senate to see whether it's going to be passed or not. But I felt strongly that there are so many debilitating diseases. There are epilepsy suffered by small children who cannot get relief from any other existing medicines. And we as a society should not be denying that to people who deserve it. And these are people who are born with some genetic defects because of which they are suffering from these diseases. And how dare as we as a society say that, no, we don't want to let you have that, because then we in the law enforcement or whatever will find it difficult to control the behavior of normal people.
That's so true. The work that you are doing in that field, I think that's a very valid concern from both sides to know, because I have some patients that are absolutely struggling and debilitated with their medical condition, and they are, at their absolute end trying to look for other options which could provide them relief. And one school of thought is, if you don't legalize it, some people are going to find a way to illegally access it anyway, and that's even more dangerous market to support. So
yeah. And in addition to this epilepsy, even for those patients suffering from multiple sclerosis, they, in Europe and all that, they give a combination of THC, which is the psychoactive ingredient, as well as CBD, which is the non-psychoactive ingredient. So the combo is used. But in the US, it's banned. They cannot have access to that. And these patients suffer from paralysis. And so it helps them because of the spasticity, effects on the spasticity. So this is another area. And as you know, nowadays, CBD has become so popular in the market. Almost every store is trying to sell this. The FDA has approved it for use, but Department of Justice says no, it cannot be used. So there's conflict between various federal agencies as far as legalization of these products.
And the thing is, the CBD is non-psychoactive. Like, it doesn't make you high or whatever. And it's a product that's found in a natural plant. And how can you control that? And, so yeah, it's a political mess.
Yes, I think there are a few of the medications that are FDA approved with cannabinoids, like Marinol, and you mentioned Epidol-X, which is for epilepsy, provide a huge benefit to certainly the refractory patients that are really in need of that. There's also a slide, Kiran Ma'am, on the PBS documentary that Dr. Prakash, aired several years ago, right?
Yeah, this was right. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, tell us about all these. I think just being a pioneer and trying to educate the public is a constant responsibility for you. It's not something you're going to give up on, and I can see that passion. Like you said, you're doing the groundwork, the research, and it's almost like your duty and responsibility to present that to everybody.
No, you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people feel like, okay, research is something where a scientist spends day and night in a lab and publishes those papers, which is very much appreciated by the peers. But more and more recently, I think there is, even from the funding agencies, there is a lot of stress on trying to convey the impact of your research in what is called as like an elevator pitch to the public, so that they understand and appreciate the impact of your research, so that they are willing to commit the tax dollars for more research, right? So what we do, both of us, is that anytime there is an opportunity to convey the impact of our research, we try to release that to the media. And, whenever we get an opportunity, we always go and try to make sure that, we publicize our research. And I think that was one of the opportunities where PBS, trying to develop, as soon as they heard the news that we were for the first time shown that cannabinoids can kill the cancer cells, and therefore even the endocannabinoids that we produce can control cancer and all that. They called us and they said, we want to visit your lab, and we are trying to do a documentary, a 1 hour documentary. And, can we come to your lab and take, interview you, as well as, see exactly how cancer, regression occurs with the cannabinoids. So we allowed them to come and visit our lab and all that. So it was a nice documentary, one of the early documentaries. They called it Clearing the Smoke, Science of Cannabis. And I just want to tell you an interesting story about it. That we were both once visiting Amsterdam, Netherlands, and there is a museum. And we were just walking. We saw there's a museum for cannabis. I said, "Wow, there's a museum for cannabis. Let's go in and see what is going on there." So we went there, and we bought the tickets and we entered it. And to our shock and surprise and shock, they were playing the PBS documentary in one of the rooms where they have the cubicles where people can sit and watch. And we were so excited to see ourselves being, our research being highlighted. So, so I told the manager or whatever, I couldn't help but, say that, like, this is our work being highlighted here. And she was so excited that we were actually the people that the documentary was showing about, but, that we were actually being present there, So that was really exciting to see that happen. But I think, like, we get a lot of emails from people who have watched this video, as well as all the other news, especially if they have cancers, like neuroblastomas, and which don't have proper treatments and all that, and seeing, whether, like, whether they should take cannabinoids, how they should take, and all that. And of course, our response has been like, no, we need to do more clinical trials. And one of the problems in doing clinical trials for THC has been that it's classified as a Schedule 1 drug, which makes it, very difficult to do clinical trials. But nonetheless, it's, like, continuing our efforts, just making sure that, we are trying, we are really working hard to see that THC and CBD are removed from that Schedule 1 and make it into, lesser schedules, so that we can really start doing clinical trials and change the attitude of the, the federal agencies, the DEA and all the other agencies, which have made this product into like more criminal thing, rather than, trying to really look at the beneficial effects and doing research and clinical trials.
Yeah, and you both are very involved in not just the clinical research side, but also, like you said, educating the public, and conferences and meetings and presentations globally. And that's one side that I think the youth and anyone considering research, whether they choose a career in research or not, can understand how much involvement there is in other aspects of actually what you're trying to prove, the whole process.
I mentioned to you before, I think that every student, I think I'm just telling the students and the youngsters who are listening, maybe that, that they should try to have a project, research project. Even in the US, at least, you have an opportunity to do research project, even when you're in middle school or high school, or of course, when you're going to college, because that really, irrespective of whether you want to be in, an entrepreneur, or you want to be in, policy making or whatever, but that experience in research is so crucial, because it makes you think critically, and it makes you think about discovering something which nobody else has discovered before, that this mother nature has got all these secrets hidden, and you're trying to search for clues, and so that's so exciting. And that's an experience that you cannot get that by just listening to lectures or on going on the website and looking for knowledge. So that's why I strongly recommend everybody who has an opportunity to try to do some sort of a research project, because that could be really transformative.
That's so true. There's this lovely slide here that is on your work in COVID-19. We'd like to discuss that as well, very significant currently.
Yes.
So tell us a little more about, I know you have, both of you have probably, from the immune side of it, have worked on this way before the whole pandemic occurred, and how what you have learned so far is very important to our application.
Yes. So when COVID struck, basically, we knew, of course, right, that it's only the people who have got the right immune system will fight off this infection and survive. But we realized that this is such a unique infection that there is no other infection that is as unique as COVID, because in almost 80 to 85% of the people who get this infection, they can fight it off fine. They are either asymptomatic or they get mild symptoms, and they can, just like any other, they can fight it off easily. But surprisingly, just for less than 10% of the population, particularly those who are elderly, those who have comorbidities like, chronic inflammation, diabetes, hypertension, and all that, they can't fight this infection. They get hospitalized, and majority of them will die. So trying to figure out this difference, why is it that some people, almost 80% of the people can fight it off and small percent can, made us believe that, that maybe that the comorbidities have a common feature, that they have chronic inflammation. So people who are elderly, who have chronic inflammation, as well as other people with comorbidities, what could be happening is that the viral infection, which they cannot control, gets into all the other parts of the body, and it causes massive hyperinflammation. That means, the immune system is getting hyperactivated, and there is nothing to suppress that. We don't have the brake system. So because of which, what will happen is there is what is called a cytokine storm. When the immune system goes haywire and starts producing these large amounts of cytokines, you go through cytokine storm. And we knew that from sepsis. Sepsis patients, almost 38 to 40% of them die because of this cytokine storm. And once you get the cytokine storm, even the existing immunosuppressive drugs are not that effective. So we had proposed that, and then we said, okay, if that is true, we had shown earlier that, cannabinoids are highly immunosuppressive. So we tried to use an experimental model and showed that the cannabinoids can suppress the cytokine storm, thereby completely prevent the acute respiratory distress syndrome that you find in COVID-19 patients. So of course, we did all this in experimental animals, but again, that became really, sensational finding, in that it showed for the first time that if you can prevent the cytokine storm effectively in animals which are undergoing this ARDS, you can completely prevent them from dying. So, so that was the impact of this. But again, as I said, we were not successful in doing clinical trials with this because of, being Schedule 1 and all that. But that is at least the basic finding that we made, and that's what we had predicted.
And another aspect that we have been working on COVID patients is that, these long haulers, those who have suffered from severe COVID and who have recovered, have long haulers have various after effects. And so one of them is the post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. And we had been working on PTSD for a long, long time. So PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, is one wherein there is a life-threatening event, and subsequently these patients suffer from mental or psychiatric disease. So we find that, or it has been shown that post-traumatic stress disorder may arise following maybe domestic violence or sexual assault or combat. Those veterans who are coming back from the wars, all of them, or majority of them, suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. And so we find that even COVID patients suffer from PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. And so we have been looking at what is the immune dysfunction that is occurring in these individuals and trying to see whether we can reverse this.
Yeah, that's really important, because I think even in the world of psychiatry, we're just beginning to understand through SPECT scans and brain scans what areas are impacted. It's not just the serotonin and the typical antidepressant, anti-anxiety medications. There are all these endocannabinoid receptors and so many other pathways that impact the symptoms that patients suffer from. So in the field of what would you say someone that has recovered from COVID-19, whether it was a mild or severe infection, what can they do in their daily lifestyle to enhance their own endocannabinoids and to really support their immune system and bounce back or get well from that?
Yeah, no, research has clearly shown that in order to maintain like the appropriate balance of immune functions and the endocannabinoids that we produce, clearly depends on the environment. So you have to have an environment in which you don't have much stress. Clearly, you need to have good exercise regimen, that you have to constantly exercise. You also need to have good diet, which is rich in green vegetables, fruits, as well as good source of protein. So just making all these changes and making sure that you don't have hypertension, you don't have cholesterol, and you don't have sugar, all of those things are very critical for maintaining a good immune response, a good balance of immune system, where you can fight off infections, but at the same time you don't have the chronic inflammation that is leading to all these other clinical disorders. So of course, till such time we find a drug that can take care of the chronic inflammation, and I know that everybody wants to just swallow a pill and not having to worry about trying to take care of themselves, right? But I would strongly suggest that, and again, Indian culture has shown us that yoga, breathing exercise and all that, it's so critical for lowering the stress. And as you get stressed, you produce more corticosteroids, and which are again affecting the immune response. So making sure that you stay in a very healthy environment in which you have diet, exercise, watching your weight, and all the other measures is very critical to maintain a good immune response.
Yes. Balanced immune response. And certainly you mentioned the environment. I think with everything that our Amchi community, our Bhanap community is doing to support that, with all the various Zoom activities we have nowadays, and it's just wonderful to really help our complete mind and body connection with all the activities. So I'm very thankful for that too. Let's move on to a little bit about what I know you all are both are doing so much in the field of research. What do you all do for fun?
We play ping pong.
Okay.
We love traveling, and we also love food from various countries.
Yeah.
I guess we shouldn't be eating too much, but we do. But in addition, Prakash loves singing. He sings Hindi songs, and also he does dot art. And I like acrylic painting, as well as watercolors, as well as sculpting. So,
wow, wonderful.
Actually, Miss is really good at.
Not really good. Just
I'm just saying that because of COVID-19, we're kind of depressed and working from home all the time, not being able to see our families, and everybody went through that. And I think she taught me how to do some dot art, which I really enjoyed, and I felt like that took a lot of my stress away from what I normally was doing. So yeah, I think people need to find some hobbies which takes their mind off their daily busy routine and all that. So, and I think it's somewhat like, as we discussed, like yoga and breathing exercise and all that.
Yeah. When you do, find some groundbreaking research or discover something, is there like a central database, for younger generation looking into getting into research, if they have an opportunity at their university, or Is it, how do you make it known to the world that you're the first one who thought of this and proved something before it is information sharing? How does that work in the research world?
Right. So right now, because of COVID-19, there has been an amazing level of collaboration and disclosure, open disclosure of research that people used to, like earlier, we discover something and we send it for publication, and a journal might get it reviewed and rejected, and then it goes to some other journal. So it's always peer reviewed. Without peer review, we never used to publish. But right now, there are some journals which you can submit as soon as you make a discovery, you can submit that information so that that information is available to everybody, including the public, before the peer review. So of course, once that stage is over, then they send it out for peer review and all that. But nonetheless, when you make some groundbreaking observations, that has, that information is available for the entire public. And that started primarily because of COVID-19, because everybody, scientists and everybody, felt like we are not so much keen about developing patents and trying to take credit, but we want to save the humanity because people are dying like crazy. So we need to be, so that's why it's so exciting to see that after the virus was isolated, within a week, we knew the sequence of the COVID-19 virus, the sequence of the virus, which enabled the development of mRNA and, the vaccines and all that. So, it's just so amazing to see how, in some ways, the science contributed towards, within a year, developing one of the most successful vaccines that everybody's able to use it. So things are dramatically changed with respect to how we, disclose the information that we generate in research.
That's wonderful. We have a slide showing your advocacy for research and your interaction with the governors, the state senators, our congressmen, senators, and a lot of state officials. So explain how, what's this experience like?
Yeah, so one thing in the United States is that in order to secure, my role as a vice president for research, try to bring more money for infrastructure so that we can help our faculty and students do outstanding research, was to try to secure support, right? So we need to, so I realized basically that, that's why you need to work with the governors, you need to work with your congressmen and your senators, making sure that, you highlight the impact of your research that's being done at a university level, and talk to them about how this research leads to innovations, and that leads to startup companies, and that leads to workforce development, and that enables entrepreneurship and creating new jobs, and that helps build the economy, right? So if you look at the research dollars, United States spends one of the largest amounts of research dollars to support research across universities, because universities are the source of innovations. That's why USA is so advanced because of that, at least thus far, right, compared to China, for example. So USA invests about $40 billion to support research across all the universities in the US. But if you look at the way these funds flow, almost one half of that, like $20 billion, go only to 5 states, like California, Massachusetts, New York, and so on. And then there are about 28 states which together generate less than 10%. That's less than $4 billion. So we in South Carolina are one of those states, and that is because of the size of the state in terms of population, the economy, and so many factors are involved. But my argument has been that hey, in South Carolina we have the talent, and we want to give opportunities to our students as well, to get them exposed to research and innovations and startup companies and all that. So therefore, it's not just fair that 5 states in the US get all the one half of the money and we get just a little bit. So that kind of argument helped me connect with the politicians. And of course, once you talk to them about the impact it's going to have on the economy of your state, then they're always very much willing to see how they can help you, So that's the experience that I had, irrespective whether the politician that you're going to work with is a Democrat or a Republican or whatever. But the moment you talk to them about, trying to help your state grow the economy and then things like that, they're always working together to try to see how they can help you. So we felt like, that's something that we need to strive to make sure that we convey our interest. And I think another thing I want to make sure everybody knows, at least in the US, or those who are listening, is that you can always it's so easy to connect and contact with the senators and congressmen. You can go to the Capitol Hill and visit with them and talk to them about your concerns or whatever, and they are always there to help you.
Yeah, that's a misconception that they're very hard to reach, but I think they're very approachable, and that's one of their responsibilities, to listen to the public. That's wonderful. And I'm so proud that you are from my home state of South Carolina, and really just a couple of hours away from me. And that's wonderful for me too. Let's pull up a slide. The next slide is on the again, some letters and some very significant documents that you have received from United States Senate throughout your journey. Met several officials, important people. What would you say to somebody that is looking for a career, looking to perhaps get into this line of research, whether it's in medicine or in any engineering field? Should they be thinking about something like this when they start their career? Should they be thinking about how the impact they could have?
Yes, no, that's a great question. So, it's so wonderful to have, like, I go to the Capitol Hill every year, to try to secure funding for our university and our state and all that. And I had like wonderful interactions with the staffers there. And, the staffers are youngsters, who are just finished their bachelor's degree and they want to get experience there. But I think it's a huge opportunity for developing leadership skills and, working in as a staffer for your congressman or your senator and all that. There are a lot of opportunities. And I think the youngsters should try to make use of that, because that's where they get to understand, leadership skills, how the policies, how the bills are prepared, what are the policy issues that they are dealing with. So it just widens your knowledge tremendously. And I think you also have the opportunity to meet your constituents all the time, and listen to their concerns and all that. So I think that's everything, that everybody should try to do. And in this picture, whenever I go to the Capitol Hill, I sometimes bump into some of these senators and all that. They're really gracious and very nice. But I just wanted to share with you Manu Raju there, who is of an Indian American, yes, who is a CNN reporter that we see him all the time. So once when I had gone there, he was interviewing one of the senators, and then I waited till he finished his interview, and then I went and introduced myself, and I said, can we take a selfie? And he was so gracious. And it's just so interesting that suddenly you bump into somebody that you have been watching them for so many years. So that was quite exciting.
We have a lot of questions coming in, and they're very interesting questions. A great discussion. Moving on to the next slide, we have a very significant slide where you have been very instrumental in securing $3.8 billion from the Department of Energy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so in the interest of time, I'll just try to be very brief. This is one of the largest grants that I served as a PI, principal investigator, representing University of South Carolina, working with the Department of Energy, a company called as Battelle, as well as the regional universities, in trying to manage the Savannah River National Lab and management and operation. So it involved trying to put together large teams of scientists and trying to compete and trying to see how we can compete with other companies and all that. And finally, our proposal, our application was selected. It's going to be a 10-year grant for $3.8 billion. And I really am excited to and look forward to working on this particular project in terms of, nuclear energy, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and things like that. So I just want to be brief because I know that
wonderful. Please take your time and elaborate. Any opportunities for our, maybe somebody in India that wants to look into research here? How do we, across the oceans, kind of encourage our younger generation to be a part of something? I'm sure there are a lot of opportunities with such a big funding opportunity.
Yes, so there are, of course, students from India can apply for undergraduate studies here, but I think the tuition is quite expensive here in the United States. But they can also apply, of course, if they finish their bachelor's degree, they can apply for doing PhD here in the United States. And all students who are selected for PhD, they get assistantship, and they get assistantship as well as tuition waiver, which together comes to almost like maybe about $30,000 to $35,000. So making sure that you prepare for your GRE or GMAT, the exam that is necessary that they look into in terms of your scores and all that. But again, if anybody has any questions and want to contact us, they're welcome to. If they are in biotechnology or anything related to immunology and all that, if they already finished their PhDs, there are postdoctoral fellowships that are available, and we are looking for postdocs all the time. And I think at the end of the presentation, we have our emails, so they're most welcome to write to us.
I'd also like to add that, whenever you're in school or in college, please make sure that you avail of some leadership opportunities that may be available at your institution or in the community, because that also counts towards getting your admissions, because they not only look at your credentials, academic credentials, but also your extracurricular activities. So that would be something, as well as you should opt to do some volunteer work, and you should be passionate about it. So these are some of the things that weigh quite heavily in the admission process.
Yes. As one of the slides moving down, I think it's the 11th slide, the last slide, is how, Dr. Mitzi, you are serving on several significant national committees. And that, tell us about that, how you got involved in that, why that's important, and what it helped you achieve.
So as we just were talking about, academicians not only have to do research and teach the students, but also it is important for us to serve on national committees, which make some policy decisions which are followed by the government officials. For example, our National Toxicology program on which I was serving. So what this program is all about is that any person in the US can send a potential problem. For example, if someone wants to know what is the toxicity of hair coloring or hair dyes, so you can suggest that to this National Toxicology program. And if they think that it is important and worth working on, then they enroll a lot of scientists at this national lab who perform studies, elaborate studies. Some of them just look at short-term studies, looking at toxicity, maybe of the liver, the lungs, the kidneys, etc. But also they do long-term studies. For 2 years, they treat animals with this compound and then look at whether these compounds are carcinogenic. That means, do they induce cancers? Are they teratogenic? Are they causing birth defects? And so on and so forth. So once they have done all the studies, our committee evaluates the overall effects. And if our committee feels that this is something that is toxic and it should not be it should not be used for the public, so we make a recommendation. For example, when I was serving on one of these committees, there was a study on bisphenol A or BPA. And that is a product which is found in the plastic containers, food containers, the clear food containers, like the polycarbonate food containers, as well as milk, baby bottles for the milk for the babies. Those bottles also had this. So it was found that this BPA was toxic because it reduced the quality of the sperm as well as the quantity. It also induced breast cancers as well as prostate cancers. And so our committee made a decision that to suggested to the federal government that they should ban this. And so this was conveyed to them. And now you notice that nowadays you have the BPA-free containers. They mentioned that. So based on that, on our recommendation, that was followed up by the government. And so the industry was made aware of this problem, and thus BPA-free containers originated. So it is not only important to serve on these committees, but also you have to be, there are some of these associations or academies. Like, for example, you have the American Association for Advancement of Sciences, which brings out a journal known as Science Magazine. So it's one of the top-notch magazines or journals. So they have what are known as fellows of this AAAS. So these fellows are selected based on their credentials by peer review. And it is an honor to be named a fellow of such an association or an academy of microbiology or National Academy of Inventors and so on and so forth. So it is important to, because you have then the ability to make some decisions which are related to in that area. And as a matter of fact, like AAA's fellows, some of them go on to get Nobel Awards as well.
For any budding researcher or entrepreneur, anyone in India or other parts of the world, is it easy for them to obtain funding? Are there between nations funding for certain global like COVID-19? How does one go about doing something like that?
Yes, so NIH, National Institute of Health, which is one of the largest funding agencies, do have some grants that that you can collaborate with with international scientists. For example, like we can, or somebody can collaborate with scientists in India, for example. But sometimes those are certain unique problems. In other words, we need to explain to the NIH, why is it that you're collaborating with some scientists from India or some other country? For example, there is arsenic or some unique environmental situation, let's say in some places like in Bangladesh or someplace in India and all that, then the NIH will allow you to do research because that is the type of sample that you can get only in that particular place, so that way you can justify. But if otherwise, it's most of the funding is restricted to US citizens and green card holders.
Yes. All right. I think, is there anything else you would like to add to our viewers and share with them about your journey, your passion, what it takes to really be a pioneer in research? Any advice?
Yeah, just that as we said, we set out to become researchers to find something really exciting, but our career paths have taken different tracks into more leadership and more trying to fight for the public and getting involved with the society, and and so sometimes it's like what you want to do with your career, basically, that you don't need to be, as a scientist, be 24 hours in your lab and trying to do research, but you can also enjoy reap the benefits of the exciting findings that you make.
Are there any opportunities for, go ahead, Dr. Mitzi.
And also, I think it's absolutely critical that one has to work very hard. There's no shortcut to that. And so that's something that the youngsters should bear in mind.
Right, hard work, yep. Are there any mentorship opportunities that anybody in other parts, like maybe India, could avail of here? Is there a national mentorship program or anything like that for research?
No, that's a great idea. So I think, as you all are trying to put together these teams, I think it will be wonderful to have, like we have those type of mentorship programs in the university. But I think as an association that you all are starting right now, what I heard is that you can have people who are seniors in, business industries, research, entrepreneurship, whatever. You can seek help from senior people who are willing to dedicate or devote some of their time as mentors, and have a list of mentees who can contact them and give them career advice, provide help, and write support letters and things like that. So I think that might have a huge impact in trying to accomplish some of your goals, in trying to help the youngsters, the younger generation.
Yes, and the importance of as you mentioned, the importance of maintaining relationships and connections with people that have helped you throughout your journey, your professors, that even your teachers maybe that you started out with in school.
Right.
I know certainly in my life that's been very important for me. So
yeah, so we always like our mentors, our professors who trained us during our postdoc years or whatever, we always kept in touch with them, send them cards every year, making sure that, inquire how are they doing and things like that, because that type of relationship is so crucial, because at every stage of your career, they'll request, letters of support, letters of, whatever. And so therefore you just can't have a relationship where you say, okay, I'm done with this mentor, or I'm done with this issue, the work, and I'm going to move on, and I'm not going to keep in touch with my previous mentor. That relationship is so crucial, because they are the ones who will help you write those support letters even 25-30 years after you graduate and all that. So it's critical to maintain that relationship.
And that carries a lot of weight, right? Because they've known you way back, and they know your core personality traits and character traits. So that's very important. So I've had a wonderful discussion. I feel like I've really understood your reason behind what you have done, the passion that you all have carried throughout, raising a wonderful daughter who herself is a graduate of Harvard and very well-established ophthalmologist. And I have no words to explain how I feel about this, because I come from a medical background, and for me to really understand the treatments that we use in the clinical application world have so much to do with hours of research that people like you put in, and that eventually comes to the table for our application use. We have some questions coming in, so we can kind of focus. I touched on some of them as we had this discussion. One of the questions that has come in is, which human organ produces the endocannabinoid, and how do you regulate it?
That's a great question. So the cells that are found in the brain, they produce endocannabinoids, because of which when they try to block these endocannabinoids, people started having a lot of psychological or psychiatric type of effects. So endocannabinoids are produced in the brain, because of which they help regulate normal functions of the brain. But what we were able to show is that the immune cells, the cells that fight off infection, they also produce endocannabinoids, and those endocannabinoids are necessary to control the chronic inflammation so that our immune system doesn't go haywire. But yeah, so those are primarily the two major types, but now they're showing also like this linings of the gastrointestinal tract, and also they can also produce endocannabinoids. And I'm sure that there are other organs as well which produce endocannabinoids, but majority of it is produced in the brain and by the immune cells.
Yes. So the term we use, what's your gut feeling, comes from the fact that your gut has feeling or emotional receptors, neurological neurons. And I always try to explain that to patients, how the stress can impact your gut. And people that complain of bloating and cramping and reflux all the time, it's all linked to the health of the gut, which indirectly is linked to your mental state and your mindfulness state. So, all
so that's
connected.
things that I just wanted to highlight is that everybody needs to realize that Mother Nature or God did not create each system separately and then try to join them, right? So they created, everything originated from a single cell, and then it started dividing into different organs and tissues. So therefore, every cell or every tissue is interconnected. So when you think about stress, it's going to impact everything, your cardiology, your heart functions, your immune system functions. Immune functions can control other. So there's huge interaction because it's like it's one complex system. So therefore, that's why we need to have holistic approach for looking at the health rather than looking at only one system at a time.
Yes, and that's what, unfortunately, in traditional medicine, it's very hard to achieve that. But when you take time and spend time with the patient, trying to understand personalized medicine, like you mentioned, or precision medicine, knowing what your individual genetics, how that affects your own health, is very important. So we have another question coming in, which is asking about, if someone is in the field of Ayurveda, what can Ayurveda offer to research?
Yeah, so Ayurveda is really fascinating because clearly, I think through centuries, people have, anecdotally at least, have heard that certain types of medications or plant products can help heal certain types of diseases and all that. But I think we also need to look at Ayurvedic medicines to try to see what are some of the ingredients that are found in those medicines and how are they acting, just like we talked about these indoles and resveratrol and all the phytocannabinoids that are found, which act through aryl hydrocarbon receptors and all that. So Ayurvedic medicines and the Chinese herbal medicines are the source of new medications, I think, which can be have a huge impact on the health and well-being of individuals.
And I'd like to add that there are about 250,000 plant species, but only 6% of them have been screened for medicinal effects. And several of the pharmaceutical companies have been selling some of these compounds which are derived from plants. For example, aspirin, what normally everybody takes, is from the willow plant. So also Taxol, which is found, which is an anti-cancer agent, is derived from the yew tree. And then you have morphine derived from opium, as well as digitalis for heart attacks from foxglove. So there are so many plant products that have been tapped by the pharmaceutical companies from these plant products. So there is a large number of plants available there that have not been studied. So there's great potential to develop new novel ways, novel extracts that may be beneficial, as well as there may be some which are toxic. So that is something that needs scientific research.
And yes. I think one of the problems with Ayurvedic medicine, why it's not significantly grown, I think, is because of difficulty to do clinical trials, right? Because when you do a clinical trial with one compound, you can reproduce it, whether you do that clinical trial in the US or in India or any part of the world. But when you do clinical trials with an Ayurvedic medicine, each place you have to have exactly the same ingredients, to do clinical trials in a control, placebo-controlled trials. So that becomes difficult because of the quality control issues. But I think in India now there are several of these, very well companies which are very well organized to try to make exactly the same type of medicines, Ayurvedic medicines, so that you can reproduce those results.
Mm-hmm. I have a question which just came to mind. with all the vaccine hype and the benefits of vaccine, especially with the COVID-19 vaccine, what is your thought on the way our current vaccines that are out there, how they work, and are they beneficial overall? Are they safe? Because there's some concern about the way these vaccines were developed. And give us a little background about how long that research has been going on, and how that is the efficacy of that.
Right. So, vaccines are basically almost getting the real infection, but it's not causing infection, right? So people are unnecessarily worried about, vaccines may not be safe. That's not true, because when you take a vaccine, what you're doing is basically you are taking an infectious agent or part of the infectious agent, but you take that without that agent really causing an infection. So that agent triggers your immune system into producing antibodies or T cells. And then what happens is that our immune system is made up in such a way that once it comes across a foreign antigen, it gets converted into what are called as memory cells. So the memory cells remember that, I had come across this infectious agent before. So when it comes across the real infection, the memory cells get really activated very fast and clear the infection within no time. So that is the benefit of vaccination. So, this mRNA vaccine is new. The technology is new, but the nice part is that it doesn't stay in your system for a long period of time. It does not alter any genes. It doesn't affect the DNA or whatever, but it triggers the immune response, and the memory cells are responsible for giving you, the protection. So because it's a new infection, we don't know how long that memory response will, stay to fight that infection. If it's the antibodies, of course, go down after 6 to 8 months, but the memory cells remain. And against certain infections, the memory cells can remain in your system for years and years. So that's why if you give one vaccine, then you have almost lifelong immunity. But we need to see that with COVID-19, because we don't have the data yet to see how long the immunity will last.
Yeah, very important point. As far as I have another question about youngsters that are interested in research. How and what would you advise on them connecting the research? How would they connect their research to products that benefit society? How should they even start thinking about where is research needed for certain products?
Yeah, so like as I said before, you go into research to understand what does research involve, right? So you're trying to discover something new, and once you have that passion for developing or discovering something new, then you can make a decision about, okay, you want to work on environmental problems because because of the global warming, you want to do carbon sequestration, for example, to trap the carbon and store it in a way that it doesn't cause global warming. So if that is passionate to you, then you need to join some physics or chemical engineering or chemistry type of department. Or if you feel like ecology, how do you prevent the floods, to prevent environmental damage to your sites, then you'll have to go into environmental sciences. Or if you want to develop new materials that can be very light so that it uses less energy, you want to go into advanced material research in engineering or in, so based on your interest, you can tweak into which areas that you want to develop that interest in. But right now, I think there is so much talk about interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research, so that everybody, like the scientists, are beginning to realize that one person, one individual, one lab cannot solve all these problems, that societal problems are very complex, that needs collaborations with several people working together. Especially the artificial intelligence is becoming really, really critical, because whether it's trying to solve the healthcare problems or environmental problems or whatever, clearly there is machine learning and artificial intelligence is going to be huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we've covered most of these. Are there any lifestyle issues that affect the cannabinoids, endocannabinoids? That would be stress and any other factors?
Yes, so endocannabinoids, for example, when you do exercise, you feel good about it, you feel euphoric, and that is because you produce endocannabinoids. They also shown that when you eat something delicious like chocolates, for example, that makes you feel really good, and that triggers endocannabinoids. So I think making sure that you sleep well, eat well, good diet and healthy exercise, lifestyles without stress, all of those keep the endocannabinoid levels high and making sure that you enjoy life.
That's good. Dr. Mitzi, any final words of advice to our viewers? From a woman's perspective, being a woman, how about you share a little bit about how a woman can balance everything that you've done so beautifully?
So I know that when I started my career, it was kind of taboo to be working in doing research because when I first joined Defense R&D establishment, there were most of all were guys and I was the only lady, and make some remarks which were not appropriate. But things have changed over the years, and slowly we have seen now they always look for to have a diverse class, having both women and men as well as from various races. And so there's enrichment of the culture and the environment, having contributions from various individuals. And another thing what I had faced in my career is that leadership positions were very difficult for women to achieve. There was a glass ceiling, and there still is, but it's not as bad. So many women have broken that glass ceiling and and do hold leadership roles, so which is very encouraging. And I think the future is very bright for the young girls.
Yeah, this is very modest. So I just want to tell you that she was elected as the president of the microbiology chairs. There are like about 150 medical schools across from, including Harvard and California and all that. And, there are about 150 of these chairs. They elected Mitzi as the president of their microbiology association, which is wonderful for an Indian American lady to be elected as a president of that association. Is great.
That's wonderful. Yeah, we're very proud. I've really enjoyed this talk and getting to know both of you on a personal level, a professional level. And I thank you for your time and encouraging our youth, anybody that's watching from all different countries here. And this will be available to be viewed on the internet. So any final words of advice for anybody watching?
No, we just want to thank the organizers. We really, really want to thank you. I think you asked such right questions, and you just did such a fantastic job. And I think you are also phenomenal. You have done such an amazing job of starting your own company and being a physician and a mom and taking care of your kids and your
also
family.
You're also a park couple.
Yeah,
because your husband also is very well.
So, right.
I mean, I just think we're so blessed in our community to have everybody is so good at what they do in terms of education, our spirituality, our connection with our Guru Parampara, and everything brings us together. And certainly discussions like this just foster that community, which we all need now more than ever. So I'm very grateful.
And I just want to thank everybody for hosting us, and it's such an honor, and we are really humbled by this opportunity. And again, anytime like anybody wants to talk to us, discuss with us any questions they have, they're most welcome to contact us. We'll try our best to help everybody.
I too would like to thank KSA, CSN, CHF, as well as Praveen Mom, Rajiv Mom, Arun Mom, and most importantly, Nivi. You did a fabulous job. Thank you so much. And thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. Jai Shankar. I'll turn it over to Kiran.
All
Ma'am.
the audience whom we are not able to see, but thank you all for your patience.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Okay, so we're down to the last segment here. This is Kiran Munkur, and we had our first across the oceans gathering here, and a beautiful and peaking conversation on inflammation. The whole future of medicine relies on it in multiple different areas. A wonderful platform, broad platform that holds so much hope for our future. And so I'd like to thank, starting with our Swamiji, who has blessed us, blessed the community, and it has thrived and succeeded in multiple areas, social, technological, spiritual, and the intellectual and compassionate person that he is, and so humble that he has encouraged us, guided us, and we see the success through his leadership. Special thanks to KSA President Praveen Mam, also the other leaders, Kishore Mam, Jairam Mam, Gautam Mam, and a lot of work behind the scenes. Rajiv Kalyanpur Mam, he started working on this with me about 2 months ago, and a lot of little sorry, I don't know what happened, but sorry, a lot of little steps initially, and then he's so systematic and organized that he made it so easy. There was so much complexity behind the scenes, and of course, our the organizers in India, Raman, Vivek, Rahul, that have been so helpful in the background, making this a great thing for us. We were especially honored by our guest speakers, Prakash and Mitzi, wonderful couple, so humble, and also our compare, another high accomplishing individual, so humble and compassionate, and Nivedita, Dr. Nivedita Bizur. And thanks to everyone else on the panel and also the audience, so much interest to the end and so many good questions asked. So at this point, I will now hand it to Rajiv Kalyanpur. Thank you.
Yeah, that was such an interesting and informative session. Thanks a lot to Dr. Prakash Nagarkati and Dr. Mitzi Nagarkati, and for the beautiful handling by Nivedita. Wonderful preparing. Well done. Thanks so much. So I now request.
Thank you.
Yeah. Praveen Ma'am, you would like to?
No, excellent kind of a program across the borders. And I must personally thank both Prakash Ma'am and Mitzi Pachi for kind of your, what should I say, your explanation on such a difficult subject was so interesting and easy to understand. Nivedita Pachi, also thanks to you for comparing the whole show so effectively. So, and Arun Heble Ma'am, Kiran Munkur Ma'am, being a great host along with KSA for organizing this, and of course our own Rajiv Ma'am who did it so well. So I wanted to thank all of you, and hopefully we will come across, this is just a beginning, we'll come across many such Bhanaps or our Canada, our Saraswat, Chitrapu Saraswat colleagues, friends from across both UK, USA, and all the different borders, different countries, where we can come to know in India how they have gone abroad and really done our community so proud. So Thanks once again, Prakash Ma'am and Mitsipachi. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, गौतम मैम समाप्ति प्रार्थना करतो है.
Jai Shankar. Am I heard?
Yes.
ऐकत ना?
वय ऐकू येतं.
नंदन्तु साधका सर्वे विनश्यन्तु विदूषकाः अवस्था शाम्भवीनेस्तु प्रसन्नोस्तु गुरुः सदा सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात्. ओम शांति शांति शांतिः.
Okay, so that was really wonderful.